Hey everybody, it's Emmy from Frugal Money Saver. I have some meal prep to do today. So I figured I would take you along with me. I have some string beans that need to be used up. I have some blueberries that need to be used up and some apples. So I thought I would just share the recipes and what I'm doing with those food items. You know I'm big on zero food waste, and what happens a lot of times with produce is it gets shoved into the back of the refrigerator and we are stuck with rotting vegetables that have to be thrown away, and we don't want that because that's a waste of food. So if this sounds interesting to you, stick around. Let's do some cooking and food prep. My husband Paul and I are an early retirement couple, and we're so happy you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button down below and become part of our family. And by all means, if you enjoy these kind of videos, give it a big thumbs up. Let's get to cooking. Good day, everyone. I am on my way to do some serious food prep this morning. I know this doesn't look like a lot of food, but wait till you see what we end up with. I've got some beautiful blueberries I want to use. I have 3 apples. I have a bunch of string beans. So I need to create some delicious recipes so this produce, fruits do not go to waste. So often this stuff gets shoved in the back of my refrigerator and it doesn't get used, and that's a total waste of money. So I want to get cooking and I want to take you along with me. Before I got started, I went on to Google and I knew I had 3 apples. So I Googled recipes using 3 apples. Right? It worked out perfectly. I found an apple tort using exactly 3 apples. So I am great shape right now. What I did was I peeled, cored, and diced the 3 apples into little chunks. And what I'm going to start with is I'm going to take 4 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to put that in my bowl. And my butter's salted, so if the recipe calls for salt, I don't add it. And then what I'm going to do is add a 1/2 cup of white sugar and a 1/4 cup of brown. Now, you know I always tweak my recipes, so it did call for a cup of white, but I'm mixing it up a little and lowering the sugar. I need to seriously get some new measuring cups. I have no more measurements on them. They rubbed right off. So if anybody knows any pretty little turquoise measuring cups where I can get some, drop me a link. That would be great. So we've got the sugar and the butter in here, and I am going to cream this now. So now I creamed the butter and sugar, and I am going to add just 1 egg. This is such a simple recipe. I was so happy I found it. So we've got 1 egg in there, and I'm going to mix that all up now. Now, I'm going to remove this so I can sift my dry ingredients. So I'll just stand this up right over here. I am going to sift 1 cup of flour, and to that, I am going to add a teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. It said cinnamon, but I'm going to mix this up. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice just to give it a little extra flavor. This has got cloves in it and it's got nutmeg, so I think that'll be really good with the apple tort we're making. I'm going to put a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and I'm going to put in a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And again, it does call for an 1/8 teaspoon of salt, but I'm not going to add that because my butter has salt, so I don't want to oversalt it. There we go. Beautiful. And now I'm going to put my beater back on, and I am going to incorporate this all together. It's going to be a very stiff batter. That's what they said. So let's see how it looks. So that's all creamed together, and it is stiff. Okay, this is like a little Play-Doh action going on. Now I'm going to take the 3 diced apples, put them in. And now I am going to mix this together. I can't imagine how this is gonna work, but I always do my new recipes with you all, so you're bearing with me on this. Oh my goodness. This is gonna be like apples with a tiny little bit of dough mixed in, I guess, but it should be good. Okay, beautiful. I have a 9-inch pie plate that I buttered and greased, and now I am going to take this and I am going to put this in there. It is a little bit thick. Okay. So our tort is in the pan. So I just smoothed it out. There we go. Well, this just looks delicious. This looks like it's going to be amazing. So now what I'm going to do is take it and put it in a 350 oven for 1 hour. This came out so beautifully. It was super easy. It cooked at 350 for 1 hour. But like any recipe, I checked it after 50 minutes and then 55 minutes and then at 1 hour. It was perfectly done in the center. I will cut a piece and show you what it looks like on the inside, but for 3 apples, minimal ingredients, what a beautiful dessert. Just cut a piece of the apple tort for Paul. It looks absolutely beautiful. I'm just going to put a little powdered sugar on top. You could put whipped cream. No matter what you do to this, I don't think it can go wrong. I really don't. And if you're really feeling adventurous, you could maybe add some nuts to this, some walnuts, pecans. But I think just like this, it looks amazing. So bon appetit. We are going to roast these string beans. They come out so well. The first thing I did was preheated my oven to 400. And what I did was I cleaned them, took the tips off, and now I'm drying them. Why am I drying them? We don't want them to steam. We want them to roast. And if there's water on them, they're going to steam. So we're going to try to dry these little guys really well. Well, as best as we can. I have a pound of cleaned and dried string beans. To that, I am going to add 2 teaspoons of, little extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of onion powder, and I just eyeball this to taste, whatever you guys like, however you prefer. Some salt, and then some cracked black pepper. And if you like any other spices, by all means, then I just take my hands and do this, because you really want to coat these string beans. Just get in there and rub them around. Then I'm going to take and put them on my nonstick pan. You can roast any kind of vegetable, but string beans just have such a wonderful taste roasted. And I'm going to get all this good stuff and just cover them. I'm going to put them in a 400-degree oven for about 10 minutes, and then I will turn them, and then we'll see another 5 or 10 minutes. Will depend on how well they're done. So let's get these in the oven. These cooked for 10 minutes at 400, and they are perfect. Oh my goodness. It's amazing though. You think you got a pound of beans, but then after they're cooked, it's like this little tiny bit, but they look so good. Okay. Now, oh my goodness, look at this. They're a little charred on the ends. Perfect. I should have definitely got 2 pounds though. I know we'll go through these. And now what I just do is take a really good Parmesan cheese and put that right over the top. Super simple, super frugal, and so good. We are moving on to our delightful blueberries. This is 2 cups of washed blueberries. This recipe calls for a cup of blueberries. I'm upping it to 2 cups, and we will hope this works. A cup of blueberries sounded a little scant, so we're going to put a little bit more in. So let's start. This is a cup and a half of all-purpose flour, 3/4 cups of sugar. I just need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. 1, 2, and we're going to sift this all together. This is another super minimal ingredient recipe, and I just looked for a blueberry muffin because these are probably going to freeze beautifully, and that's what we're looking for. We also need 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Now I have a 1 cup measuring cup. So to that, I am going to add 1/3 cup of mild tasting oil, like vegetable corn oil, something like that. Then I'm going to break 1 egg into that cup. And then what I'm going to do is fill the cup up with milk till it reaches the 1 cup capacity. There we go. That's how they told me to do it, and that's how I'm doing it. Now I'm going to add our milk, egg, and oil concoction right to our dry ingredients, and I am going to give that a good mix. Now, because this is a muffin recipe, we want to make sure that we don't over mix it. There we go. Scrape down the sides. Now I'm going to add my 2 cups of blueberries. This makes 8 muffins, and they are going to be pretty blueberry-ish, I think. So now we're just going to gently incorporate the berries in because we don't want to mash them. We want to keep them as whole as we possibly can. There we go. That was super easy too. These 1 bowl recipes are frugal and easy, and usually they're with things that you already have on hand, so there's no trips to the store. I greased my muffin tins, and now I'm going to fill them, 8 of them, and then we will add a special crumb topping to this. So I filled up my 8 muffin tins, and I had greased them previously. Now what I'm going to do is set this aside, and I'm going to make the crumb topping. For the streusel topping, I have 2 tablespoons of softened butter, 1/2 of a 1/3 cup of flour, I have a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and I'm going to put in probably about 3/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. And that cinnamon with the blueberry is so good. And now I'm just going to incorporate this to make our streusel topping. Okay, so now what I did was I made 1/2 of the recipe it called for. It called for a 1/2 cup of brown sugar and a 1/3 cup of, it just seemed like too much streusel. Look at all this made. I did a 1/2 recipe. I will link the actual recipe below. So now I'm just going to put a little on top of each muffin, and I think this is just going to take it over the edge. And what we're doing with these is we're going to be freezing these. We're not eating these now. These go into the freezer in a month when blueberries are completely and totally out of season. We're going to be able to pull these out of the freezer and have some beautiful blueberry streusel muffins. So there we go. I'm going to put them in the oven at 400 for about 20 minutes. The blueberry muffins are out of the tin, and I have to say I'm pretty darn pleased with how they came out. They're beautiful. My suggestion to you, though, is make sure they're absolutely cool before you try to take them out of the pan. And because the topping, it does melt a little and goes around the edges, they're a little difficult to take out of the pan. But look at these. They're absolutely beautiful, and we're going to put them in the freezer. So we have some fresh blueberry muffins when the weather gets cooler. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I had so much fun doing this, and Paul is just reaping the rewards. He was like, oh, blueberry muffins. So it's all positive. I think my favorite, honestly, was the apple tort, though. It was such a simple recipe, and the flavors reminded me of gingerbread, like an old-fashioned spice cake with apples. It was just, for me, I think that was my favorite. The beans are just so good roasted. It's almost like a candy. It doesn't even taste like a vegetable. That's how good they are. And Paul, hands down, his favorites were the blueberry muffins. Have food that's going to go into the freezer now, which I'm thrilled about. All the muffins, except the one that Paul stole, will go into the freezer for later use. And the apple cake, we will share with my son who's coming for dinner. And the string beans, well, we ate right away. They were great. So thank you so much for spending this time with us. Please give this a big thumbs up. Leave us a comment, and we are so blessed to have you. Until our next video, we wish you blessings, and we love you. Bye-bye.